Welcome, everybody, to session 3 of our course. I'm going to start off, this is part A. I'm going to start off with a fable, a very important part of that reveals the first law of economics. And according to Fable, there's this emperor, and he tells his servants, some of his advisors, say, I want to know about economics. But I don't have the time to learn that much about economics. So what you want to do, I want you to condense all the economic knowledge there is into one book. And I can read that one book and learn all I need to know from economics. So they do that. They spend a year or so writing that book. The emperor gets the book, and all of a sudden he realizes this is too much work. This is going to take too long to read the book. So he goes back to his servants, advisors, and says, look, that book is too long. I want you to condense the book into one single page. And on this single page, I want all the important things that I need to know about economics. So the advisors do that. They come back with a single page, and sure enough, the emperor says, this is too much work, even this one page. I want you to condense this page onto like a single little postcard, a little note card, maybe just one sentence on it. And that's what I wanted to learn, and all that I need to know about economics. And the advisors confer with each other, think about how to write this one little postcard, and they write it, give it to the emperor, and on it says, there is no free lunch. Okay, now that sentence, okay, is the first law of economics. Okay, there is no free lunch. I'll explain what that means in just a second. But the important, it's the joke has a double meaning. They're also telling the emperor, hey, you can't just learn this by reading one sentence. It's going to take some effort. Okay, there is no free lunch. Whatever, if you want to learn something, it's going to take some effort on your part. Okay. By the way, and this might be on exam. If I ask you what is your professor think is the first law of economics, the answer is there is no free lunch. And almost a very similar way of stating that same law is that you get what you pay for. Okay. Now, an example of this, and I want this to be some useful practical advice to you. A story happened with my daughter. She's a sophomore in college, goes to Michigan State. She and three of her friends say, we can get this off-campus apartment, and it turns out the off-campus apartment was only $400 per person. And we thought, this is what a great price. So when she gets there, she learns that the apartment has like these gross stains on the carpets. It's dirty. There's 2 bathrooms, but only one works. It's just this awful place. And I had told her before, there is no free lunch. We said, well, we learned those $400. We should have known something was up. And in general, in life, and this, you'll learn more when we go through the course about what I mean by that, especially in a competitive market. The price reflects the quality of what you're going to get. Now, and the same thing, whenever you see something that you can get for free or for reduced price, it seems like a deal that's too good to be true. It usually is. Okay, that's part of what that means. There is no free lunch. Now, the one possible exception to that rule, there is no free lunch, it involves Fairfax County schools. It involves the notion of a study guide. Okay, now I'm fairly new to George Mason. This is my 6th year at George Mason. And when my first year here, some of the students said, are you going to give us a study guide? And I said, what's that? And they explained. And as I understood what it means is, I learned eventually that this is what Fairfax County schools are doing. That there may be a course where the teacher spends 100 hours, say, teaching you, but by the time of the final exam, rather than making you responsible for that 100 hours of content, what the teacher does is writes out a little guide of here are these 25 to 50 things to memorize. You can do that in 3 hours, and forget about all the 100 hours I've spent teaching you. Here's the only 3 hours you need to know. And I thought, Why does the teacher spend the 100 hours? Why not just cancel all the classes and do those 3 hours? And I heard about this. I thought, no, I'm not doing that. That's like having a free lunch. So it's not quite a free lunch, but it's like a 97% off coupon for a lunch. Instead of doing the 100 hours, you forget about 97 hours and just do the 3 hours. So, by the way, so for my course, I don't give study guides. I think that lulls students into thinking, oh, forget about all the other content. Here's the 3 hours of stuff to memorize. Despite that, I always get students who ask me things like this. Please tell me the 3 hours of stuff that I can memorize to get an A minus. I don't want to do all the other work. And I don't want to do that. I'm not going to tell you, oh, yeah, all that other stuff, just ignore that. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. So keep in mind, if you want to get a good grade, you have to watch these video lectures. You have to read the chapter. There is no free lunch. You have to do the effort. Okay. While I'm on it, something related. Okay. This is a personal note. About every 2 or 3 years, I'll get some student in class, and all that student will do, every single question, and usually pestering me 2 or 3 times per lecture, all the questions that that student asks will not be things about the content of the course, the concepts and the facts that I'm teaching. All the questions are, how do I make a better grade? We keep a straight face, we professors, but we hate that. That is so annoying. No teacher goes into this profession thinking, oh, I just want to grade people. I want to hear complaints and hear students ask for shortcuts, how not to learn the concepts. That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is teach you these grand concepts that we think are important and we love teaching. That's what we want to do. By the way, and so I told this story to my wife once about this student and how annoying he or she was. And I kept a straight face. I didn't tell that student. And my wife said, our daughter's kind of that way. And so once I heard that, I had a long talk with my daughter and said, let me tell you how teachers think. This is what they are thinking when you do that. Now, my daughter, you could say, has child of a teacher privilege, that she gets to have special insight about what teachers, professors are thinking. It's not quite fair for some people to have that insight and some people not. I would like for all of you to have that insight. So I'm going to tell you what we professors tell our kids, but don't always tell our students. And one is that student I was telling you about that only asks the how do I make a better grade type questions. They are so annoying. By the way, at some point you may need to get a recommendation letter from a professor. At some point the professor may hire a research assistant. Those students will not get good rec letters. The professor may say nice things, but in the end we'll have a little paragraph that says, on the downside, this student just doesn't have that much of an intellectual curiosity. Every question he or she asked were the type, how do I make a better grade? It was not really that interested in learning the concepts from the course, even though he or she actually made a really good grade in my class. You don't want such a letter, okay? We're not hiring such a person to be our research assistant. They are just annoying and they're probably not a very good worker. And by the way, if an employer knew that you were that type of person, I think the employer would not want to hire you. So don't be that type of person. Just in case you are and you can't help it, let me tell you what I told my daughter. Just balance out those questions with questions about content. For every time you ask one of those questions, ask one about the content. Even if you're not really interested in the content, act like you are. The professor won't be as annoyed with you. Okay, that is my little tip for that. That's my begin. This is part A. Don't forget, though. So that was my tip, useful, practical knowledge for being a student at a college, but also don't forget the first law of economics. There is no free lunch. There is a good chance I will ask that very exact question on the exam. Okay, see you in part B.